The following session was recorded live in St. Louis, Missouri for the 2001 Annual International Association of Square Dance Callers. This is tape number 5, Marketing.
This is the marketing session. It's a repeat of this morning's session. I'm sure much of the information, however, will be different. I'm Larry Cole. I'm the moderator. We have with us Mike Seastrom, who is chairman of our marketing committee, Mike, and Jim Hensley, who is our foundation marketing director. Jim will be talking to you about the phase 2 of the Phoenix plan. Mike will be talking to you about cooperation and growth and things that we see going on. I'm going to visit with you just a short period of time about unity. You've heard a lot, if you've been to the last couple conventions, about unity. That's been stressed, that it's this whole problem of fixing our activity, if you will, has to be done in a unified manner. We all have to be involved and we all have to work together. Unity is a small word, and there's not a lot of hearts and flowers you can put around it. I tend to approach things from a country boy type perspective. That's where I grew up. You got one side of the road, you got the other side of the road. There's not a whole lot in between there. And flat out, unity is the only way that we're going to accomplish our goals, and that's to get everybody on board. That's not to say everybody needs to join CALLERLAB. That's to say everybody needs to join each other. All the organizations need to work together, all the national organizations, all the state organizations, all the clubs, all the callers, all the cuers, all the dancers. We all need to become one. We all need to work together. Some of that is coming. Some of it on the national level. We've had folks get behind the foundation and make some donations and things. Most of you know about those. The NEC's come through and so forth, and a lot of other groups. Some individuals are doing things in their clubs. We had some examples of that in the first session. The one club is making and selling T-shirts, and they've also added 50 cents to their admission, and they send the foundation about $180 a month just from adding 50 cents a person to their club admission. There's lots of things like that can be done. All of that focuses on unity. That all focuses with all of us working together for a common goal, and that's really the only way that we can succeed. You've heard Jim preach about it over and over when he gets a chance to speak. You know, I had the topic last year on the Tuesday evening banquet, but it is a short topic. There's not a whole lot you can say. We either do it together with unity or we don't get the job done. There was a tremendous amount of good information presented this morning by these two gentlemen, and 10 times that much presented by the folks who were in attendance, and we hope that you guys can come through the same way. It was really, really a great session with a lot of positive things came out and a lot of information exchanged. With that, I introduce Mike Seastrom.
Thank you, Larry. You know, Larry's right. A good part of this session will be your input, your ideas, your thoughts, and we hope to, as we go along through this session here, we hope to get some feedback from you and answer some questions that any of you have so that we can move forward with this marketing project. As many of you know, when we first started on this, I think originally the board introduced we became introduced to this concept back in Cincinnati several years back, and then in Dallas, Jim Hensley and Creative Marketing Services presented to us a plan that was not a quick fix for square dancing. We really felt at that point in time that there wasn't a whole lot of things we could do that would quickly fix this activity of ours. And so we have developed a marketing plan that we're looking over 10 years of a period of time to be able to take steps, logical steps, one in order to the other, and to be able to put this thing together. As Larry said, one of the key factors and one of the toughest things we've had to deal with this year is how can we all get on the same page? How can USDA, how can Roundalab, how can CALLERLAB, how can Legacy, how can the NEC, how can ACA, how can all the various organizations gather together? One of the comments that we got last year was, we're thinking too small. As far as unity and gathering together, we're looking at organizations that are involved in just contemporary square dancing, contemporary club square dancing, and that there's so many other factions of dance out there. Why aren't we looking in a bigger picture? Why aren't we looking at the big dance scene? Why aren't we looking at getting dollars from the U.S. government and from state governments and municipalities on things like the arts and exercise programs and things like that? Why don't we belong to groups that like the National Dance Council and other organizations that have been out there for 70 and 80 years? Why aren't we part of those organizations, and why aren't we looking at the bigger picture? So this is part of what we're assessing with our marketing plan. One of the things that so many of the clubs have talked to us about over the last year or two, since Jim and I have been out doing presentations to various associations around the country, is what can you do for us right now? I mean, right now we're in trouble. We need your help right now. And many of the ideas that have been part of our Recruit, Promote, Maintain Committee, or RPM Committee, over the years are ideas that there are groups out there right now in the United States that are using these ideas, and it's working for them. Their programs are growing. But there's some elements, there's some key elements in when you look around the United States and you see which are the programs that are growing. First of all, it takes good dancer leadership. If there is a dancer-run organization or a dancer-run club, we need dancers that are excited about dancing and are enthusiastic about what they're doing and are enthusiastic enough to bring people into the activity. We need callers that are excited enough about what they're doing, about their teaching, and we need leaders that are passionate about this activity enough that it spreads and it's contagious. So these new dancers say, God, this is something I want to be involved in. This is fun. They treat their classes like it's a dance and like it's a fun night. Come on out and let's have a good time. They're having fun from the very first night of class, and they're passionate about what's going on. And that's what we're finding with clubs and even caller run programs that are succeeding today is that first of all there's leaders that are effective leaders, and there's people that are passionate about dancing. The second thing is that we have people that are thinking outside the traditional box of how we run our dance programs or how we run our clubs. There's classes right now succeeding in areas because these classes have tapped into the homeschooling programs in their areas. Homeschooling, as many of you know, is a hugely growing popular area of education in the United States. There's associations out there in cities and counties and states that are just associations of homeschooled people. And so what we're finding is that some clubs are literally tapping into that market and contacting the homeschooling associations in their area, and what they're doing is they're providing a physical education program for kids who are homeschooled kids in the square dance class, in their traditional square dance class. And in doing so, they're getting almost doubling or tripling the number of people that are in their class. A good number of them are homeschooled students doing their recreational project or doing their PE requirement for their homeschooling. But in addition to those students, they're getting their chaperones or their parents or their aunts or their uncles to come with them and join their classes. So they're thinking outside the box of how we traditionally run our class programs. And are all of these people joining the clubs? No, not by any stretch of the imaginations. But are the classes being able to pay for themselves? Yes, they are. So they're thinking outside the traditional mode of how we run things. They're trying different programs. They're actually having 2 and 3 clubs that are combining together for a class in a specific area to make the class successful. Where years ago the clubs might have fought for which dancers are our dancers and which dancers are their dancers, we're getting clubs that are thinking, let's just get these dancers dancing. Let's just get them out amongst our clubs. We don't care if they visit our clubs back and forth, if they belong to both clubs, if they go to your club because your club dances on a Saturday night and they maybe come dancing to our club or visit our club because our club dances on a Tuesday night. They're starting to think in a more regional area for the good of the whole area, and those are the areas that are growing. The clubs that are still kind of thinking in that box, well, we've never tried that before. How do we know it works? Or, oh, we tried that a few years back, and that didn't seem to work for us back then. Instead of that kind of attitude, the areas that are growing are thinking progressively. Let's try that again. Let's see if we can tweak that program around just a little bit. Most of you know that over the last 5 or 6 years, I've preached and been involved with multi-cycle programming or multi-cycle teaching of square dancers. I believe so strongly in a continual, non-stop program of bringing new dancers in the activity because it allows us to tap into our best source of recruiters, and that's our enthusiastic new dancers. Those people are going out and bringing in new people to class. That's a source that by the time in our traditional classes, by the time these people get done with their new dancer program or their class and they're actually graduated from their clubs, they're off on vacation, they're coming back trying to get their feet back again. They're not going to bring in their friends to class because they're going to go back and angel the next class. But we're taken with multi-cycle program halfway through the class when these people are at their peak, and we get them to bring their friends. And not only do they bring their friends, but they dance with their friends. And every one of these people come up to me and they say, it's so nice when we angel our friends at this class that we're in, because for the first time we're the smart ones. And they're only halfway through class, but they're the smart ones, and God, they're proud of it. So we do, for the first part of the class, we teach our brand new dancers from the first night up to the basic program, from 7 to 8:30, and then from 8:30 to 10, we teach our second part of the program, which in our particular area is the plus destination. We don't have mainstream programs. So consequently, we bring these dancers through mainstream and plus in the second time. Do they all go through in 34 weeks? Because we start a class every 17 weeks. Do they all go through it in one shot? No. But our fast ones, the people that are out there dancing at the halfway dances that are taking 2 classes a week, those people are going right through. And other people, if they're a little bit behind, we tell them, why don't you guys stay on, and instead of moving on into the next phase, stay back in this phase and help our new dancers. You guys can angel our new dancers and help us out. You'll get a review, but at the same time, you're helping us. I don't have to tell them to come back next year. We can keep them right there. I've had people in that program now for 2 years now, and they're just now getting through the second phase. There's no race to finish up. I don't have to tell them they have to leave, but they're there every Tuesday, and they're there at the class. So a program where you're constantly bringing in new people, where you don't have to tell people that are just not getting it all away. You can just step them right back, have them repeat that phase and help out with your new dancers. You don't have to tell them to come back next year or go to Joe Blow's class down the way. You can keep those people in your groups, and you can keep those people bringing their friends in. You've got an opportunity to keep your new dancer program. This club that I teach classes for also has every other tip at their club dance for people in class. Every other tip. Well, at first there were some concerns that the other clubs in the area wouldn't actually come because they weren't dancing the plus program the whole night. But as it turns out, other people not only come, but they bring their new dancers to these dances. So consequently, the club dances have expanded. The number of people that come to those club dances has grown because of the type of program. So I think we need to start thinking outside the box of how we traditionally run things. We need to start thinking of ways to bring new dancers in and keep these new dancers. And it takes leadership. It takes people that are passionate about what they're doing to make that happen. And when you look around the country, you look at areas where they're talking about their programs growing. It's number one, they have leaders, and number two, they're trying new things and different things. And this makes a big difference. I hope to hear from some more of you a little bit later on in the session as we talk about some of these ideas, and we talk about the marketing plan as it unfolds over this convention time. In the meantime, let's tune in to Jim and listen to what Jim's has to say.
I just want to say a couple of things because we really, as Mike said, we get more from you guys than we give to you. The phase aspect of this 10-year plan is not some clear-cut thing. It depends, in fact, phase 2 depends on how effective we've been in phase 1, because it's like a PERT chart, if you remember, where you got to get this done before you can move to this, before you can move to that, before you move to this. And we've been very successful in some of the parts of this phase 1, and we haven't in the other. And Mike alluded to the fact that we still haven't learned to communicate with each other because no one really realized how tight these little circles of wagons were around NEC or around CALLERLAB, around Roundelab, around the individual state conference, California Council, or such and such association. Each of these wagon trains that started out collectively as one big wagon train in St. Louis, as most wagon trains did a couple hundred years ago, and wound up in California. We're halfway there, but we're not the same way we look. We don't look the same way as when we left St. Louis. We look entirely differently than we did in 1945 or 1970 even. And now there is a underlying kind of feeling and attitude and mindset that's a product of a couple of things, which is important that we reaffirm with you. The documentation that has been done now and recently within the last couple of years by other people as well as ourselves irrefutably points to the fact that the decline in square dancing, along with the decline in every other social, civic, and religious organization, really had almost nothing to do with what you did or didn't do. So there really is no blame, no guilt. And that underlies a lot of this separation, a lot of this diversity, because what happens is you take over leadership in 1975 and more, you're doing the same thing they did 5 years ago and it ain't working. And you start trying to double up and you start to feel bad about it. You're letting this great old American tradition down, and you try harder and you try new things, and it doesn't work, and you start blaming yourself. And after a while, you can only blame yourself so long. Human nature takes over, and you do what the psychologists call a projection. You project out some of this feeling of guilt into the people around you. If it happens to be the people around you have to be callers and you're a dancer, then it's the caller's problem. It's the dancer's problem. It's our leader problem. And if it may not be something that everyone is conscious of, believe me, it's there lying as an underlying element. And if there's one message we need to take back, and that is at the beginning, you must tell these people, if this ever comes up and as it comes up, nothing anybody could have done. Nothing anybody could have done over the last 30 years would have affected the condition of square dancing today. And that is an absolute fact, particularly because of the organizational structure we have. So wipe out the blame. There is no blame. And eliminate that as a beginning base. And so in the area of communication, which was important part, educate, find out what our prospect target market is, and then find out who we are, which we're doing now, and the demographic studies are beginning to, and then find out what went wrong. These areas we're doing well. The areas of communicating and getting this data down the line, trickle down, a la Reagan, or any form, trickle up, fall down, cascade, we don't care. But we're not getting that kind of information. We have a real problem in communication. Because I don't think that we really get our organs, the American Square Dance Magazine and the various regional magazines that are read. I think they're read really more for scheduling purposes. I don't think people really read this. In fact, if I ask you all now, how many of you really read your own house organ? I won't do that because I don't want to embarrass you. But I think if you were honest, you'll probably say that a lot of you don't even bother to do that other than to see the highlights and the points. And I understand that. This is the nature of the business, but we really need to find that vehicle. And again, if anybody's got ideas on this, boy, we're wide open for it. The second phase takes us then really into exploring what we need to do and how we need to qualify, what we need to do to qualify ourselves and how we need to qualify corporate sponsors. And we are exploring also the opportunities in public relations. I would like to have had a little bit more of a package to bring into these people, but we very well may need to do what we have and go in there, because we also are seeing for the first time that the only way we're going to get us together is through an outside alliance, which we are looking at. I've chosen to call the arts. It's called the Alliance for Round, Traditional, and Square, and the acronym means the arts. And everybody wants to support the arts. But whether we use the foundation or whether we use an outside alliance, we need that central clearinghouse. We need an advocacy that speaks for us, that is not in any way aligned to any one group, that is totally independent. And ultimately, this outside alliance would, in fact, also be managed by people who are paid to manage professionally. There is no home office in this business. You guys are... If you were independent agents for Prudential, once or twice a year, there'd be a bunch of double-breasted suits walk in and say, we've been doing research and we've been studying this and we've been studying that, and we found out the sales are down by 5%, and this isn't the image. So we've taken $25 per policy, and we've taken 5% of your commissions for the next 6 months, and and here comes the dog and pony show, and the guys run in with this beautiful display and ads and commercials and stuff, and you're happy about it because your sales do go back up. That doesn't happen. You're the same kind of people. You're independent agents in business for yourself. But you got no home office. And this creates a great dilemma, both in terms of the support function you need, as well as this business of communicating. And so we're trying to find solutions to that at the same time, but it makes it a very difficult task to do. So when and how quickly we go to this second phase will in part depend upon how effective we are in solving these problems sitting over here. But we're very excited about this. We have reason to believe that this product, or as they call it in the sponsorship business, this property, known as a property, that this property has a great deal of potential and value, particularly in the way these corporations are moving now in this whole area of association. They no longer want just a certain number of images. They now want to associate themselves image-wise on long-term relationships with events and with activities in which they think strengthen their product and their own corporate image. Well, I got news for you. There's no better recreational area in the world in terms of tradition, American heritage, and all the rest of the good stuff than square dancing. It truly is, I think, a product for this time. You may not think of it that way because of the difficulties you have, but I think we're really coming into a key time in which this will become an ever more attractive property. Questions? Anybody? Unless you have, yeah. We'd like to open this thing up. Is that right? Because we get more from you than you get from us. You've heard some of this anyway in some of the opening remarks, and whether I know what the questions are and Mike knows what the questions are, then we can really be more specific and utilize the time better.
Jerry Held from Cincinnati, Ohio. I have a question. Have you had any research or whatever on who is selling square dancing? Are dancers the main marketing tool for square dancing, or is it the callers that are selling square dancing? Has there been any information on that or a study on that?
The only thing we've found is that nobody's selling square dancing. In this town, we did 3 focus groups 6 months ago, or less. And of all the people, we had 2 groups of these were people who were not dancers. And to a person, they had no idea that square dancing even went on in St. Louis. They assumed it went off out in the country somewhere. But they did not, to a person, have any awareness of that activity being available for them in this town. And the same was true in Portland. To some extent, it was a little better in Charlotte. So no one's advertising. You're the best kept secret, as you've said many times, in the world. And you also happen to be the most politically correct, healthiest social activity in the world. You know, these things shouldn't be going together. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but excuse me, go ahead.
In terms of actually recruiting these dancers into what we call contemporary club dancing, I would say it's both the clubs and the callers that are recruiting these dancers into the contemporary scene. But the one thing that we're finding out, at least from this market research, is that the adults that actually experienced square dancing as an adult, they were more likely to have a positive opinion and join us because they had experienced this as adults than if they had experienced dancing as kids. And the way most of these people have experienced square dancing as adults is one-night parties, one-night functions, those type of activities. And those were the people that were more likely to join us. And for many, many years, it's been apparent, and we had this discussion in the board last night, that for many years, the callers that do one-night functions or just specialize in those functions have been thought by some callers and by some dancers to not be real callers, when in fact those callers, are really our best source of recruiting dancers. They're the best source of getting people the positive image and the positive experience in dancing, and are really our greatest resource for dancing for adults. And that may be the only dancing experience that most of the population ever gets in their adult lifetime, or their lifetime their time as being a kid even. We have to make those leaders, those dance leaders, and that skill the most important thing we do with our new callers and our experienced callers. That is, it's an incredible talent. It's to entertain dancers in whatever form you specialize with, to take those one-night experiences or one-afternoon experiences and make those exciting enough that people want to come back and return to that same experience, or actually return into the contemporary dance scene. We have to make that the most important thing we promote, because I think that's the key to being able to recruit down the line with the contemporary club dancer or any kind of dancer for that matter.
Stu Shacklet from Brandenburg, Kentucky. I have a question too, and I wonder if we have tried to tap that group of people who are out there doing dances every Saturday night and having 15 and 20 squares, but they are not a member of any organization. They are not a member of CALLERLAB. They are not a member of a dancer association locally, but yet they have these big dances and all these people come out. Now, have we talked to them to find out what their outlook on this is and what their success story is, to maybe help us along the way to find out what we're not doing that maybe they're doing? I don't know.
So, are you talking about contemporary dancing or traditional dancing?
I'm talking mostly about traditional type dancing.
As I spoke earlier, we need to think outside the box. For so long, we have thought about just our type of dancing, our limited contemporary club dancing, as being the only dance that's out there. When in fact, as Sue points out, there are groups all over the place that are not affiliated with anybody, or maybe affiliated with a recreational program someplace, or just dancers that are affiliated with a college someplace that are dancing, that are not actually dancing the type of dance that we think of as square dancing today in our narrow scope. You're absolutely right. We need to tap into those people, because there are groups out there flourishing under those independent programs and doing great.
As callers, I think we miss the boat many times in not opening our eyes to the possibilities in the other forms of dancing that exist. And Dorothy Shaw probably said it better than anybody. She said it's like having a 9-room home and closing 8 of those rooms off and not using them, and only using one room. And that's what she was implying, that there are a number of other types of dancing going on out there that lend itself to this same activity that we're not really opening our eyes to and paying attention to.
Absolutely, Stu. One of the proposals that Jim proposed to the board last night was this alliance. How can we get together with the Country Song and Dance Society, with the National Dance Society, and combine all of us into a alliance where we can promote dancing and in all its forms.
Vaughn Parrish from Colorado. I'm wondering what you think of if you see road signs and you see anything that rhymes. What's the first thing you think of? See? Why couldn't we have rhymes at the end of it, put square dance? There's a way of doing it. I think if everybody agreed that if we could get the word square dance out there on the road signs, that would stay there, that you'd see day in and day out as the people are commuting back and forth from way off to, Lord, they commute for an hour at a time. And if we could, these callers are all putting together little rhymes. If we could get all the callers to make up a few little rhymes. You don't have to say chicken in a bread pan pecking out dough, granny does the dog bite, no child no, square dance. You could make 2 ditties out of that, but at the end of each one, put square dance. We could talk to a few farmers up and down the roads all over the country. It doesn't have to be an interstate. And talk to a farmer and say, could we put a few little signs on your fence out yonder, and at the end say square dance, like the Burma shave? Everybody thinks of Burma shave with all those little things. And if you ever saw a list of rhyming things going down the road now, it's been a long time since I've seen one, but I do see one occasionally. And immediately I think, why don't we put square dance signs like that out? I think it could be done, but I could do a few of them myself. You could. Or we could pool our money and figure out some way to get a sign company to do them. There's a way to fasten them on fence posts, wooden fence posts. There's ways to fasten them on metal fence posts. You just have to think about it a little bit. I can tie anything on my fence post, but I'm not on a highway. I'd like to see something like that going. I would like to see something that every little bit you see the words square dance. And I'd like for them to be there permanently if possible, but talk to somebody. I think it could be done.
Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Craig Ressing from Charlotte, North Carolina. A few years ago, we started a corporation called Grand Square Inc. to do one thing is to promote and preserve the art of square dancing. And since then, we have found that we have come across a lot of obstacles, mainly callers. First dance we had a couple callers boycotting our dance, and all the money was being raised for the foundation. I think we raised $3,500 to the foundation. Then last year we had another dance to raise money again, and again we were overcome by callers in our local area of Charlotte boycotting, telling their dancers not to come, that we would not raise any money, and it was all a big farce. We raised roughly $8,700 to the foundation this past year. What I've seen is the unity of the callers not being united and working together. I see that I make a suggestion, one caller to come over and help support another caller, and it's like a ministry. This Baptist preacher will not help this Baptist preacher out, and in turn divides instead of unite. When I was probably 5 years old, my dad always taught me that if take a piece of wood and you go against the grain, you're going to have strength. You go with the grain, it's going to fall apart. And I've always said, united we stand, divided we fall. Callers are not sticking together and not supporting one another in the same town. They will help a caller out maybe across the state line as they feel like that they're not going to influence their little group, and we're not sticking together and working together and making square dancing the #1 dance of every town. But like if Betty doesn't like the way Susan does something, then they'll start their own club, we've noticed. And in turn, that big club that was 300 members is now down to 150, and then they break off into 75 each, and then eventually they just die off until the callers get together and unite and say, hey, we're all in the same boat. Let's help each other. Let's do like a new dance program where you bring in another caller in to help your newbies or newcomers. Because the hardest thing that I found out when I went to another club, you're so used to hearing your caller that it's hard for you to dance to another caller. But if in a, say, Charlotte that has 10 callers, if they would rotate around helping the clubs out together, then everybody gets to know all the people in each clubs, and they're willing to venture out and start supporting all the clubs in that town, not just staying in their little nest. Sorry I was so long.
No, you're absolutely right. The areas that are growing are areas where there are dancers, callers, all the leaders are together. They're working together. They're sharing their programs. They're sharing their dancers. They're pumping each other. They're working together. And you're absolutely right. That makes all the difference in the world.
Mike, I've got a question. Dick Gasco from San Jose, California. When you did your marketing research, did anybody actually talk to kids? Because I know one of the things that I've heard is that the kids are the future of square dancing. We want to get them involved, but what do they want? You know, what'll get them out dancing? Has anybody talked to them about that?
Not this far. No, we haven't gotten to that point in our research where we've actually been able to tap into the market or even look at that part of the market. We felt first, let's start with a specific group that we felt would be most apt to join us. Let's identify a target group, because as most of you know, most advertising that you get, whether it's on the TV, whether it's in your mailbox, wherever it is, it's targeted toward a specific audience. And we thought, well, if we could target our audience, if we could actually reach a specific audience, find out what wound that audience up, how can we reach them, we'd have a much better chance with our advertising. Most of our class advertising is just generic stuff. It's flyers. It's the same old insignia year after year. And how can we target a specific group? And what group would be more apt to join us? And that's where we started with this marketing project. And that's about as far as our market research has gotten us thus far.
Is there a plan to add research to that generation at all?
Yeah, market research will continue to go along, but a lot of that depends upon the funds that we're able to raise. Okay, because market research really needs to be done by market research professionals in order to be valid and give us the right information. And there is a plan. There's goals and objectives of the Phoenix plan will be presented at the marketing committee tomorrow at 10:45 in the Cleveland room. So come on out.
Okay. Yeah, the reason I asked is I've got 3 kids all who square dance, and we're getting their friends in, but it seems to all be word of mouth, and I don't hear anything about it at all within the adult community. So I was wondering about that.
Number 10 on the list of goals presented yesterday was introduce youth education programs. The reason is not just, we have difficult things, because when we came in here, we were asked to help clubs retain and grow in membership. children are not going to be a source of membership for you, ever. They never were. They weren't in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, unless they were in youth club dancers. Basically, kids don't join, and basically kids don't become members. But we have another equally big problem. Along with this help clubs get new members was, let's try to change this image. So we definitely see that. This summer, for the first time, UCLA will offer a 3-hour extension course. It's being done in conjunction with the National Convention show in Anaheim, where about 200 California teachers will get one of their extension requirements for education out of the way in 3 days. And we're working beginning this week in teaching fourth graders, and they will be the angels for the new fourth graders that haven't been taught. We teach the teachers in the morning, in the afternoon. The teachers then are teaching these students, and we have every angel for each of these teachers is another teacher herself. We have enough teachers in Southern California, so that's a program which eventually will filter in, because those principals are already oriented to looking at new kinds of activity for these kids. They're being pressured by everybody from the national government all the way down about this pandemic obesity problem in schools. So this teacher comes back in with a new skill, having gotten rid of an requirement which they love, and they got rid of it in record time, and the rest of the summer is open for them, so they love the idea. And in the process, they come back into a principal who loves the idea that someone's coming in there with a new form of exercise. And we also are, within the next month, we'll be talking to people about developing a physical fitness program built around square dance moves. Well, it'll actually be a dance exercise video. And it won't say square dancing on the front end, but when you look at what's in the middle of it, it'll all be cored around square dance moves. Be basic square dance moves. So there won't be any question about what it is. It might have a tableau kick in there or whatever along with it, but the fact is that it will be youth-oriented. And we will hopefully be able to walk into the Department of Health and Education with the right kind of support, lobbyists, a senator or two, and say, look, you're going to have a real problem, and you got a lot of grant money coming down in the next 5 years. We think they'll spend something like $5 billion in this with just this obesity problem. We want to get a piece of it, but we have to have a vehicle that fits the program. And it has to be perfectly balanced. It has to be done by a University Physical Fitness Department with all the kinesiologists and all this crap, pardon my French. But the point is that, yes, we can't do without the youth end of it. For one thing, our demographics need it. We need to show that we're getting a younger group into square dancing, because we got to balance out the demographics of what we really are now, with an average age that's much not that attractive to sponsors. So yeah, we are. We haven't forgot the idea. We simply have to do one thing, kind of one thing at a time, as it were.
Bill Helms, Portland, Oregon. Just on the other side of the coin here, our local area Callers Association put a plan together, which is a multi-cycle plan for classes being run in conjunction with regular club dances. All the callers voted on it and agreed to work together. So we have 20 callers in the Portland area. They're going to work with this program. They went to the local area associations, which are 3, presented this to the local area associations, and was able to accumulate $3,000 seed money. They kicked in their own $600 and said, this is what we're destined. We're going to do this. This is going to be a 3-year plan. We're going to try it no matter what happens. If we have 2 couples, we're going to give it a shot. They were able to get all the associations together. All the callers are working together. There's no fighting, which is amazing, because I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I've been in other areas where callers do not get along. Somehow, some way, you're going to have to put your ego aside and look at the whole picture rather than your dance program. Some of you are making money at calling, and it's important that you bring it in. But you got to set it aside and look at the whole picture, because otherwise you're not going to have a base to call to sooner or later. On the other point, this is all new to us as far as marketing, because we never had to market back in the 70s. I grew up with square dance. I started dancing when I was 8 years old. Started calling when I was 14. And during the 70s, I remember during the Sets in Order, they always talked about the decline of square dancing. What are we going to do? Well, it's just come to this point. We've realized we have to do something about it. So it's kind of like the last couple of years, we've just, we're in a hush and a rush to try to get things done. But things can get done. We've got a group working on a grant. I'm on the grant writing committee. I'm the chairman of the grant writing committee. There's so much money out there that we can apply for. It's mind-boggling. There's billions of dollars. But we have to find a way, like Jim says, to get in and make an impression on these people, because you just don't sign up, here, I'll give me money, and have them send it to you. But we have to go as a group. We got to really unite behind this. I know we can do it, guys.
Thanks, Bill. If anybody has any kind of information or experience with grant writing, please see Bill Helms in the grant writing committee. That's 3:30 tomorrow at your meeting. In the late room? Lincoln room, okay.
Gail Richards, St. Paul, 51st National Square Dance Convention. I'm a dancer, not a caller, and in fact, before the 51st started, if somebody had come close to me with a mic, I would have been under the chair. And I think that's something I'd like to say, is that dancers need some help in how to market this. We aren't natural speakers. We're not entertainers. We're out on the floor and not callers because we don't want to hold a microphone in our hands. How do we market square dancing? Because we're out there, there's a whole lot more dancers in a club than a caller. There's only 1 or 2 callers, and there's hundreds of dancers. What are we supposed to do? What do we tell people? What do we say to them? How do we get them to come to dances? And I think we need training from you all as callers, what to do, what to say, how to get there. So that's what I had to say.
Thanks, Gail. Good point. By the way, I will try to get to all of you as I go along. My name is Mike Hogan. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Marketing Committee. And one of the things that Gail is saying is something that I just recently, I guess Mike and I really don't have conversations. We zip back and forth via the Internet, or emails and that sort of thing. And that is that, and we heard it this morning in our marketing session as well, someone else that said, what can we do on the local level? Because in many cases, I know my club, for example, in Omaha, is not real active at recruiting. They've already asked all of their friends and all of their church members and all of that sort of thing. And they are the kind of people that I have to go to and I have to say, okay, here is how you do it. Here is, in a nice, neat box, step 1, step 2, step 3, do this marketing program. It has been successful in other markets. So when we talk about communications, one of the real important things I think that we could use if we're able to get our communication stream working is part of it is that I think a lot of the dancers out there really have a sense of hopelessness in recruiting and in growing our activity. And I know because of my marketing background, which is in radio, that when I go out to see a prospective advertiser and I can bring them a success story of someone else that has used radio to market their business, all of a sudden they see a system that works. If we can get our communications going, then we can build some turnkey type of operations where, first of all, we're sharing success stories from another market. And not only this is the story, but this is exactly the steps, step by step, that they did, and you can do it in your own markets. So those are some of the other things that we're trying to really get a handle on. Who was next?
Just to add to that, Mike, it has been talked about in the marketing committee that we try to develop something, a small package or something, so that individual dancers have a vehicle where they can recruit this dance form to their friends. One of the things that has been most successful for us in our classes is, instead of flyers, we print out little cards. And are just simple business cards. And on both sides of it, our entire year class program and information is on those cards. Thank you, Ron. A lot of us are using these now. We print these up when we start our classes, and we give these cards to all our members. The guys carry them around in their wallets. I carry them around in my pocket. The gals carry them around in their purses. When you're talking about dancing with friends, it's really easy to give them a business card that has your club's name and when, learn to dance, has a contact, when it is. It also is good for a free night. Everything is right on that business card. And just to give that kind of vehicle, now that's just a small part, but if we could expand that, as Mike said, into a turnkey type of a thing, we got a much better chance to turn our dancers into recruiters. Yeah, I've got some copies up here, a limited number of them, and if you need, you can leave me your email address. I can shoot you off an attachment, and I'll have a couple samples on an email attachment.
Jerry Helt, Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been on a crusade for about 10 years, and I'd like to pass this on because we have dancers who come to us and say, what can we do immediately to strike up interest in square dancing? Well, the next time you sit down to your evening meal, you get 2 bites of food in your mouth, the phone rings. Hello, Mrs. Helt, how are you tonight? You know exactly what that is. telemarketing, right? What do most people do? They either hang up, cuss them out, whatever, say, I'm sorry, I don't want any. Don't do that. The next words out of your mouth there is, I'm so happy you called because we'd like to get you into square dancing. And if you'll give me your manager's name and number, I'll be very happy to call him or put him on the line. Now, in 10 years, we have gotten 3 corporate jobs, very lucrative jobs from this. So the next time you get the call, I'm so happy you called.
I love it.
First thing I can say to dancers is when they ask you, when they tell you, I've asked everybody I work with, I've asked all my neighbors, I've asked everybody at church, tell them, ask them again. If it wasn't for a guy who badgered my husband for 18 years through 3 states, we would never have gone to lessons, and now look at me. I'm serious. Vaughn brought up the Burma Shave signs. It made me think about an organization that we belong to. We were trying to market a dentistry for the handicapped program, and it was through volunteerism and whatnot. We discovered that these billboards that they contract to you for X number of months, well, maybe this guy's contract runs out in June, and their next contract doesn't want to start until October. They can't find anybody for those filler months. They allowed us to put our billboards up at no cost during that time so that it wasn't sitting there blank. So that's a place to go. And I never would have remembered that. It's been 10 years ago if he hadn't made the Burma Shave comment, so I thank you for that. In Kansas City, they've recently, and I don't know if our guys went to the mall or if the mall came to somebody here, and I haven't been out there. It's only started about a month ago. Every other week, they have a square dance on Saturday night at the Great Mall of the Great Plains. And from what I've heard, is that they're having 8-10 squares out there. And it's advertised on the radio. That's how I heard about it the first time, was on the radio, not through the other callers involved. I think it's a great opportunity to get it out in the public. The radio personalities are going and attending, and that's pushing it. So that's something new also. And just last week, I was contacted by a convention planner from Oregon who was having a convention in Kansas City and wanted me to provide audience participation type entertainment after a VIP banquet, which is something I had never, ever thought about. And if they'll come to me, why can't we go to them? They found me on the internet. But, you know, it's really kind of ironic that all this stuff just came together just before I came here. But it's really a lot of ideas, places to go with it.
Hank Lutcher, Kogan Station. You mentioned about grants. We just had something in our education committee on that you might be interested in. They said one of the roundabout ways to get the grants, like through the schools and for teaching in the schools, was you go through the history. You make it a grant as history, the traditional music, and right down into the square dancing. But that is the way you will get your grant quicker than if you said you want it for square dancing.
That's right, teaching history.
Right, and in the state of Pennsylvania now, I just got done teaching in schools for 6 weeks. But in Pennsylvania now, they're going to have the teachers are going to have so many credit hours of some kind of a seminar to maintain their teaching certificate, or they lose it. And I think some seminars should be done on this.
It's a perfect example of what Mike talks about, is thinking outside the box. You've got to think of this, you know, if you go to NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and every state has grants, the national grants, but you can't think of this thing if you don't believe that you're a folk art. But if you can accept the fact that you really call in a folk art field, then you've got a much better chance. So what that should tell you is that if you can see this thing as an exercise, you know, Tony Oxstein came back from Denmark at the last CC meeting, and he said, you know, those people all showed up in sweats, and they did this dance up twice as fast as normal, and I don't know, they just must have thought it was exercise. And I said, you know, Tony, a year ago I told you that if you start to look at this thing, and if it's necessary as just an exercise, and you get them in that way, and then you turn them into square dancers, that's fine. And that's why when Mike says you got to, you know, constantly see this thing. Well, could we be doing this in a square? Could we? I think everything I think about. On the way over, somebody said, "Well, people don't want to get out." I said, "Fine. Well, what do? They stay in and they have parties at home." Well, fine. Let's have why can't we create instead of a Tupperware party? Why don't we create a square dance party? And it must be something we can sell. Western dresses for ladies. Well, in other words, you consider it may not work, but you consider seeing this product, this activity in new ways. Even if it goes against what you traditionally think is the right way, because getting the image changed and getting them in the door is absolutely necessary before you can turn them into square dancers. And those things have to happen together. All this stuff that Mike's talking about, we're talking about, we also at the same time have to be actively moving that image, not losing square dancing, because square dancing has an interesting brand loyalty to it that half of the products in this country would die for. It has great brand loyalty. That doesn't mean it has necessarily a great image, but brand loyalty is very good. So when we start talking about changing the name, and we actually ask all these focus groups, we ask them, well, what do you think about the name? Well, don't like. And then we'd ask people afterwards who didn't like the name to say, well, can you give us a better name? Nobody could come up with a better name. And that was a reflection of what is really what they call brand loyalty in the advertising business. It has great brand loyalty, it just has the wrong image. The people who do not know what square dancing is have no idea, that last week I was dancing in a square with a judge, an attorney, and a PhD physicist, and the lady was calling a Summertime, which is a piece out of an opera. That image would never ever appear in anyone's mind who was not a square dancer. And we were doing very challenging things, so it was also an exercise in mental gymnastics at the same time. That's not what they have. So, that's the reflection I have on it.
I'm Jean Beck. My husband and I are Vice President of the Plains Region for United Square Dancers of America. And I jotted down a couple notes because I, too, am a dancer and not a caller, and I'm not used to being up here, but I'm getting used to it. A quick summary of USCA. Our purpose is to represent the dancer. You have CALLERLAB to represent you as callers, and it's a wonderful organization. I see you doing a lot of good work for the number of people, but you keep it fun, and that keeps people coming back. But our purpose is to represent the dancer, but our goal is to promote and further square dancing and in general, and to have a good time with it. So we are all working for the same goal. We're very happy to be able to communicate with the other organizations, and we think that we've been here 3 years now, and it's fun to recognize so many people and to know that you're interested in working together and coming toward that goal. We come as representatives not just to contribute, but to learn, and we take a lot of information back with us, and a lot of emails, and we'll pass this on to our education committee and our program people, this type of thing. I think we definitely need more information on marketing. USDA puts out a lot of brochures, and they're free. There are very few booklets that have been produced that are charged for, but these go to the dancer, and I think as Vice President of Plains, we may not be doing a good job because we have a lot of information out, but we will also be picking up information here on marketing because that's our goal, to recruit and keep dancers.
Bill Payton from Birmingham, Alabama. One of the things that was big in the 50s and early 60s, like, for example, in Louisville, Kentucky, Stu Shacklet remembers it, we had Country Western Show, had square dancers on it every Friday night. And we do not have these country western shows with square dancers on them every Saturday night in most of the major metropolitan areas. Birmingham doesn't have one. It's got Country Boy Eddie, but he's kind of gone down to two. But the thing is that I'm sure that there are a lot of small communities that have locally owned television that could put a country western show on and use honest-to-goodness square dancing. If you watch Grand Ole Opry, you'll see, quote, square dancing but it's really clogging. And that's a lot of work. And so I think that one of the things, if we could get around to the local areas and find your local TV stations and put on a square dance show, not a whole show, but a country western show, and then get them to have square dancers every month. And in Birmingham, this past, about 2 weeks ago, they came out, one of the television stations came out to an area, and they had a square dance, and they filmed it, or part of it. I don't know how much. I wasn't home to see it when it was shown, but then they were going to come back. We're having a Girl Scout deal there with square dancing next week, I believe it is, and they're going to come back. Another TV set's going to come out and televise that. So it worked in the 60s, early 60s and late 50s, and Randy Atcher in Louisville. I'm sure Stu remembers him. And I happened to dance on some of those programs, so that's why I'm aware of that. The people knew about it, they knew us, and we would hear about it, and I think that gets it out to the people that don't know what we're doing.
You know, it's interesting. When I came in on Saturday, and Saturday night here, the NBC channel, there's a country western show for about 2 hours, and I figured it was a national show, in which part of it was. And then all of a sudden they switched to what was obviously a local show. But instead of square dancing, these people were all line dancing. There was about a half an hour of local television on the NBC channel here, Saturday night, which was all line dancing. It could just as easily have been square dancing. And that, you're right. And see, one of the things we sometimes think about, that the negative image is country and western. No, I mean, it's not just that it's country or western. There's nothing negative about those two things. If it was, the urban cowboy renewal phenomena of about 15, 20 years ago would have never happened. Everybody in the country wanted to get because what's his name was doing urban cowboy in the movies, and people, big place, people were having these big. So country western is not, Madonna just dressed up in a country western outfit to do her new video. I mean, believe me, they're going to sell western country clothes to all kinds of young girls. But so it's not just country, it's not just western. It's the kind of country and the kind of western that the image change is needed. So you're right. Let's not throw away the baby with the bathwater. And there's nothing wrong with country western as an association. I don't know if that answers your question. I couldn't agree more. I saw line dancers and not square dancers.
Yeah, Bill Semuth from Glen Carbon, Illinois, just across the river. One of the clubs I joined about 8-10 years ago, their caller retired, and they asked me to be the caller. And at that point, he did everything for the club. And they got very lackadaisical on what they did, and all of a sudden they realized that I wasn't going to do that for them. They'd have to do it themselves. I told them that. If you want this club, it's your club. You got to run it. And these people did unbelievable. We need stuff since then. They're probably one of the best, strongest clubs in the area. They do the business cards, they do the malls, everything. And now the latest thing they're going to start is they say if the organizations don't ask us to come and dance for them, we're going to say we'll come and dance for you. They're going to every church in an area, every business organization, any kind of have a benefit dance, and they're saying, how about if I can come to one of your meetings and perform for you? And that's a great PR. I mean, if they don't come to you, you got to go to them. That's just pure marketing.
The other part or the other side to that is that sometimes when we go out in our costume and our regalia, we can impress people by the fact that we all dance well and we look nice and we're all dressed up nice. But are we doing the right thing? Are we sending the right message out with that? I know that we've had clubs in our area that have been out and they just have given up on demos because they say we go out there, we wear our club outfits, we dress up and we go out there and we do a demo and we never get anybody from our demos, And I said, well, have you ever tried to just go out there and have some of you dress up in your club outfits, have some of you dress up in country western, contemporary country western outfits, have some of you dress up in jeans or maybe what those people that are at that state fair are walking around in normally. So they would look at some of you guys dancing and say, well, I have that in my closet. I could just put that on and go out dancing. I think sometimes you need to think outside the traditional box of demo dancing and go out there and have some of your people who are dancing dance in regular clothes. Are you trying to recruit these? Because otherwise they think we're all professionals. Well, I could never be that good, and I can't imagine myself in those clothes and that kind of thing. And think outside the box. There's even one group out there that some of their club dancers actually are walking around in the audience as shills. They're dressed up in like regular people up there. So that, I mean, how many of you have been out in demos and you try to get your dancers to go out and get people to join you, and you can't get anybody? No, I don't want to do that. You can't get anybody to bring them in so that you can do a little, show them how easy it is. And that kind of, instead, you bring your own dancers. That's right. Don't have any of the dancers dress up. Exactly. Have your own square out in the audience to come up and join them, or what? The thing is think outside the box. If we're all dressed up, most of the time they think, well, we're professionals, or we're competing or so. Yeah. How many times have you talked to people about square dancing? Where's the competition? The image that we present, and it's getting out on I'm sure some of you have seen square dancing on TV, and is it projecting the right image? Are we doing the right thing? We need this part of marketing this, and part of marketing it to a specific audience is figuring out how to dispel the image of dancers, and how can we reach those people and recruit more people. So I think it's not only the message is critical. Wait, we got a question back there, and let's just bring it up here.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep everybody in order as they're wanting to.
Okay, so let Mike know, and we'll bring it around.
Bruce Buckby, West Dundee, Illinois. How many times have you gone to talk to a couple and she says, I can never get him to do it? We have been working, my wife Lottie's the caller, and we've been working in the Chicago area with the Girl Scouts. In the past, in February and March, we had 2 dances that had 20 or 30 squares. We had one that had 62 squares. And these are all within like 3-4 miles of each other, where there's a very strong club. And that's what, who can say no to a little girl, 3'6", even if you're 5'18", when she says, come on, Daddy, let's go out and dance. And they stay most of the night, and they have a good time. And we've been working with these same groups year after year, and it generates a lot of interest. And in that particular town where we do a lot of that, has one of the strongest clubs in the Chicago area.
Yes, very. Coming up to the front.
Why couldn't we market or target the kids with the Burma Shave idea? He was wanting to target the kids. Why not target them?
Absolutely.
So many ideas and so little time. I'm Elmer Claycomb from Prescott Valley, Arizona. Mike, thank you for finally pointing out that a caller doing a one-night stand is a square dance caller.
Yes.
And I want to also say that dancers doing a one-night dance are square dancers. Yes. Absolutely. You ask, what can the dancers do? Don't try to go out and demo. When your church group wants an activity, give them your caller's business card. Let him do it. Now, from our standpoint, we can go charge that group. We can make some money that night. We'll get 100, 200, 300 people up dancing. I don't try and sell them square dancing right then and there. I just give them one heck of a good night. And it doesn't make any difference if they're grade school kids or high school kids or college kids, or I just did a group called the Over the Hill Bunch. It was a church group. Top of the hill. They're not over the hill. They're top of the hill.
Top of the hill.
And let's just tell you, some of them are over the hill. But there were a lot of our past square dancers in it, people that have dropped out because they were, by and large, they couldn't dance anymore. They were infirm to the point they couldn't dance regular club dancing, but they wanted to do this top of the hill group. Well, they thought, well, let's do a demo group, and you come and I kept talking to Linda. I says, how am I going to talk them out of this? Because I don't want them to do anything. I want them to just get up and dance like everybody else. And we thought about it a while, finally figured out how to, I think, gracefully let them off the hook, which they said, oh, geez, we're glad we didn't have to do that. We got that whole floor up, all dancing through the night. One of the gals who is still dancing the next evening was our regular class. She says, Sunday morning, the whole subject of conversation as people came in was what a wonderful time they had that night before at that church, the church service the next morning. They were talking about it. So, just get this is how we used to get square dancing out and around. Kids enjoy it. Everybody enjoys it, but where I started out is we really need to teach callers to do one-night programs very well. Very well.
I'm Everett Curley from Charlotte, North Carolina. Someone had told me a few years ago I'd be involved in square dancing, and particularly up here at CALLERLAB, standing here with the mic, saying good things about square dancing. I'm not a caller. I'm just a lover of square dancing. We're doing have a lot of conversation here on marketing, which is wonderful. I'm glad to see that. And I wanted to say that we have the recruitment side and the retention side. And I wanted to ask, if you had to guess today, how many square dancers do we have in the United States that go and dance at least once a month or once every 2 months? Or what number would that be? Would that be 500,000? Would that be 300,000? I don't know. And I have something I'm coming to here with that. Anybody hazard a guess? It's nearly 1 million, believe it or not. 1 million. Okay. Let's just suppose it's 1 million. And we want to get the word out to millions of other people. Now, this has been my experience. I went into square dancing about 6 years ago, and I was so excited after I got in there. I went through the lessons and had such a wonderful time. After I came out of lessons, I went on a recruitment campaign. The next session, we had 39 new dancers in our club. I didn't bring all of them, and I don't want to take any personal credit, but I have to say I brought a lot of them. The sad part, 5 years later, I can't find 2. Is that right, Craig? Maybe 2 that were going through there when I went through there. Year after year, I've been just as enthusiastic. I found new dancers. They come, but they don't stay. Now, you take 500,000 people. If each person would make a commitment to bring 1 new dancer, we would double. And keep that person, but we got to keep them. We can market, we can go through lessons, and we can do all this, but it's all in vain if we don't keep the people. So, when someone walks into my office, or if I go to lunch with someone in my business, it doesn't take but just a few minutes, and they know that I'm very interested and love and care about square dancing. And consequently, I bring people in. But I would like to know or feel down the road we have some way of keeping them. And getting off a little bit differently, I think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the little town there, Mint Hill, we have a businessmen's association. And they had Wild West night. And so the lady that has the paper there asked me about getting some square dancers to come. Well, our local caller has a club dance that night. So Craig called Dee Dee. Dee Dee Daughtry came in from Minneapolis on Monday night. We went over to the club, and we encouraged people just to dress, but wear something Western since it was that kind of function. But we took about 3 squares. But Dee Dee had 7 squares dancing. And I guess that's a one-night dance or whatever. But it was entertainment for the business people. But we had great participation. Great things, good comments have come back. So we do that anytime we get a chance. Thanks.
Thanks, Everett. I agree with you, Everett. Retention is just a critical part of that. Everybody that runs a business knows it's a lot easier and a lot simpler and a lot less expensive to retain the customers you got than to go out and recruit new ones. And that's a critical part of our activity right now, and I think that's one of the things that we have a committee called Recruit, Promote, Maintain, or RPM committee. And I think that's the most critical thing we can devise right now to go along with our marketing plan is a theme that will allow us to focus on our energies keeping the dancers we have, and even going out and recruiting the dancers that were in last year's class. Where are they? Are they with us right now? If they're not, let's go get them. Let's bring them back. We've got a lot better chance of keeping those people or bringing them back in than we've got of recruiting new people.
Bob Riggs, Englewood, Colorado. I got so many things on my list here, I can't talk about them all, but a couple of ones. As I was listening to the beginning of the session, one of the things I heard was a need for what in my business we call change management. And in change management, what I'm referring to is a combination of communication and information distribution, both within the organization and between organizations, that allows for the change associated with an evolution of knowledge to be transferred to the right people with the right tools. And in that respect, if we talk about the fact that when I listen to this group, I hear a lot of people talking about what I call the mediums of marketing, whether it be bumper stickers or billboards or radio ads. Those are the, as I understand marketing, and I'm not a marketer, that's the medium. And one of the things that I know about marketing is that if you do one and you do it infrequently enough, it won't work. If you do one with a lot of frequency, it may work. If you do more than one with a lot of frequency, it will work. And so from my perspective, I heard a little equation a few years ago, and I don't know what the marketers use for this. I said, if you can get somebody to see a piece of information 3 times or 4 times, they'll recognize it exists. Somewhere between 7 and 10, they'll buy it. I don't know what the real numbers are, but the point about radio is what? 3.29 times in radio. Okay. Well, in Denver, they spent a whole bunch of money on radio ads. First, they were in the wrong time segment because they went to the wrong target market. And second of all, they weren't frequent enough. And then when they got only 3 calls, they considered that they'd wasted their money. Well, they did, because of how they executed the medium, how they used their money to do marketing. And sort of a question, and I want to give you a couple of other things before you can answer. You go ahead and answer it. Is how are we addressing this as an organization? Second of all, are some things for your list. Number 1, we need a sales kit for callers and a sales kit for dancers. And I would heavily encourage, because I think Legacy has been working on that kind of information for years, that we work with them and augment what Legacy has been sending out for years in their sales kit, and help them develop it more, because there's some pieces of it in there. The other thing was the item of unity, which came up a couple of places. That's resolved through a carefully orchestrated change management plan, as I understand it. So if you can talk a little bit about coordinated marketing and possibly the sales kit, if you've got some ideas there. Other than that, it's all comment.
Yeah, in fact, you sound like you do a little bit of this planning and change of marketing. Well, you just got a new job.
Always recruiting.
We love these kind of people. I mean, that's just fantastic. Yes, what he says is that nothing promotionally isn't without synergism. That if you try to do one thing individually, we have a lady in Los Angeles spends $15,000 every year. Last year, I sat down with her and showed her what her cost per lead was. It was something over $500. That didn't guarantee them a dancer. It guaranteed them someone in to take the class. Well, I can take $500 and I can pay 5 men $20 a piece for 3 sessions, and I guarantee you I'll wind up with more dancers. Really? Why not? If you're going to spend $500 to get a lead, and you can spend $500 and get 3 new dancers, does it make sense? And that is because of this synergy. All the effort, part of the reason people are so down is not because they caused it, but because of these other factors, this generational difference we've talked about before, the technological problems, the competition for people's leisure time and dollar. Part of that has created a kind of non-return on effort, which is 10 times worse than it was in 1970. If you made the same effort in 1970 or 1950, you got responses, you got returns, and that was encouraging, was self-feeding. The same effort today with a negative image out here gets you very little return. You get very frustrated. So this is all very understandable and predictable, which is what you're saying. So we certainly are planning to make these image change moves as a simultaneous part of this marketing plan. Without it, we're not going to get the return on either dollar or anything else. And we also must make sure that we all know, all pieces of know what we're seeking. What we talked last night at Governor's Lab. I made the mistake of running out here on the vision without making sure we all knew what the problem were. And I finally looked back and there was no one behind me. So for instance, there's no use doing one piece of this without the other. And they all do work together. We have to have the communication, for instance, to get a good plan through. And then we have to have people who know their roles and their jobs. So it is really basically a communication problem. But your point's so well made, and we do plan to synergistically make this program work together, particularly now that we're going to have a plan laid out by you. Okay.
Hank Lutzer in Pennsylvania again. Mike, I want to get back. Excuse me. I wanted to get back to one of the things you and I were talking about there about the dress when you go out for the demo. All right. I believe what we're tying into is right what they were saying this morning in the other meeting. The age group we're targeting. You won't get them in suits and ties, right? And you heard it this morning on that report.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Burma shave thing is, and I love the idea. I happen to be a Burma shave man too. But the fact is that the 35-year-old baby boomer, they don't know what the hell you're talking about when you say Burma shave signs. And that doesn't mean you can't use it effectively, Burma shave. I don't mean that. I mean you can, but you have to do it in a 2001 approach. Maybe you might have to make the Burma shave signs look like something else, or you can't use the old rhymes. You got to use hip hop. I don't know, whatever it is. You got to. All I'm saying is you have to update Burma shave if you're going to use that technique, because the old Burma shave, they don't have any recollection of this. It's like my kids, on Jeopardy. They don't know what the hell these statements are. These what do you call these phrases? They didn't grow up with them. They didn't get them. They don't know this stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah. One thing I'll end with is when I was still doing aircraft engineering, that I got a letterhead across my desk one time that really impressed me. But on the top of their letterhead, it said that there was 5 or 7 mountains in Colorado higher than Pikes Peak. Name one of them.
To add reality to what you just said, I'm 38 years old. What is Burma shave? I honest to God, when he did that, and you all said,
yeah, Burma shave. I said it. I led the pack.
I had no idea what you were talking about.
I got a book with all the Burma shave phrases. Remind me when you got the case.
Dean Fischel from southern Minnesota. I think you're wrong in not targeting the children, because as I look around this room and estimate the age, in 10 years, 90% of us are not going to be here. I would guess, I'm 64, if I make, say, 74, that'll be wonderful. And I don't think a lot of you are much different. So how long did it take you to learn to call? Those first 4 or 5 years for me were death. I'm sure it was hard on the dancers, too. So if you're going to start replenishing the supply of callers, you've got to get some young people that are going to idolize Mike Hogan or Mike Seastrom or somebody that they can look up to. They aren't going to look up to me. I looked up to John Wayne, Roy Rogers, Gene Autry. That's why, But I think you got to really get on the stick to get with time flies.
We are.
That's what it is. Time flies.
We are in fact targeting, but not in the same way we're targeting the 35 to 55 category. Simply because the 35 to 55 category, we're targeting the youth in this school program. But if you take a youth just as a youth, aside from relating to school, they don't have the time, the energy, or anything else. Where you're talking about a 35 to 40-year-old who's the kids are up and out. They start to have the time. They become conscious of their health. All these factors have pointed us to the fact there's also 100 million of them sitting there in the bulk of the population. But we are not neglecting the kids. We're doing it through this educational approach. But we really, and if you can get the 30-year-old, he's not going to be dead in 10 years. Yep.
Ron Harris, La Habra, California. We are in a knockdown, drag-out competition for their time. The dollars will take care of themselves if they give us their time. Now, there are marketing groups as big as the number of people at this convention that are working on getting the people's time. So we have to prove what we have is better than what they have. And so we have to emphasize the best and de-emphasize any bad things that we have, and we have to do it just like these big groups are going to do. And we need to work on the biggest group first. I think the basically the 35 to 50-year-olds that Mike was talking about earlier, because that's where we're going to get most of our people. And we would really like to have the young people, but gosh, they have more people competing for their time, and they have so many things with all the Nike stuff and everything. You see, and all the sports they're into, we just are going to have a harder time recruiting them. We need some 35 to 50-year-olds today.
Absolutely. The other thing I want to just chorus on is the fact that we need younger callers. We need new callers. We need new leaders. But how many of you, when you go out there and you see a dancer who is just kind of looks like somebody that could be a caller, whether it's he or she, how many of you say, so when are you going to start calling? That should be the first thing out of our mouth. So when are you going to start calling? God, carry a few extra records around. Help these people out. See if we can get more callers. We need to, as callers, recruit more callers. We need to have libraries of books and things that we can loan out and give to other people that are brand new. One of my favorite things that I loan out and constantly scramble and get back again is a tape that I picked up from Stu Shacklett a while back, and it happens to be a Jerry Helt one-night party tape. How many have seen that tape? It is absolutely wonderful. Everybody that is doing one-night stands or has ever done one should have this, should see it. It's incredible what he does to put people through a one-night party. They have a great time. And it's that kind of thing that we need to get out. We need to have more people, whether they're recreational directors, whether they're school teachers, whether they're brand new callers, whether they're experienced callers, have that kind of thing in their hand so that those kind of resources and those kind of ideas and that kind of training comes across. We've got a big job to recruit and educate our future callers and leaders.
Kathy Shacklett from Brandenburg, Kentucky. I'm a product of 4-H from many years ago, and probably a lot of you in here are as well. And little did I know when I used to watch Hayloft Hoedown on Friday night religiously that Sunday I was going to be married to the man that was doing all the calling on that show, and I'm proud to be here. But I went home last year from Las Vegas, fired up, ready to go, and I went down to the extension office after talking to Stu for a long time, saying, okay, we've got the building, I've got you, there's no cost, let's get some 4-H'ers. All we need are bodies. Do you know I have been down there 4 times, we still have yet to have some bodies, and now I know why. Because the people that are in the management part of the 4-H office are between 35 and 50, and they won't activate. I finally called the state office last week in Lexington, and within 3 hours, I had a return phone call. What can we do for you? I said, it's not what you can do for me, it's what I'm hoping we can do for you. This is another avenue of trying to get the youth going, and I've never known a kid yet that didn't square dance, folk dance, whatever, that didn't love it. And that's where I started square dancing, was in 4-H, and I don't see why we can't get that rejuvenated again. And maybe it'll spread from county to county across the country. Who knows?
Absolutely. How many callers are out in schools, at least once a month or so, just out in schools? Well, I'll tell you, what a place to be. Look at how you can get into your local elementary schools and just offer to teachers. How many have teachers in your classes that are teaching? They come up and they ask you, how can I do this with my kids? Offer them some resources, where they can get some resources to introduce dancing to their kids, and then volunteer time. Say, I can get over there and I'll help you out.
My name is Terry Lewis from Nova Scotia, Canada. Browsing on the internet, looking into that, there's always windows opening up, different details, different marketing. Have we pursued that avenue on that to maybe, have websites to open up and see the vast amount of clubs that we have across this North America, Europe, and that type of thing, to see, so people can see just how broad it is, and then it's not an old thing that people are doing.
My personal opinion, we've just scratched the surface there. We really haven't tapped into that resource as well, and it is one of the goals and objectives of the Phoenix Plan, is that we learn to tap into that source.
I just wanted to respond to the 4-H thing. I was wondering, in the days when a lady started dancing in 4-H, did they have actually dance competition? Because I believe that did happen some years ago. And it's one of the problems probably that we might have to face is that in order for people who want to get involved, they might want to compete with someone, and we don't do that.
Well, maybe it's time we think outside the box. As we talked out in the previous session, there is the Senior Olympics in Utah once a year now, and they're actually competing. And there is some great programs that have been going on for years up in the Northwest area, and a lot of callers and a lot of dancers have come out of those programs. And maybe it's time we start thinking outside the box a little bit.
When in the 40s and 50s that I was speaking about before, a lot of the state fairs had square dance contests. We happened to get into the Kentucky Fair square dance contest, and there was about 40 some odd squares started out. They got it down to the two best. They did not say who was who was number one, who was number two, but they left the last two squares. And fortunately for my square, we were there. But we had a lot of fun.
Mike, the state of Pennsylvania, every year the farm show in Harrisburg, there is a square dance competition on Monday evening, and one of the callers brings a total busload of 40 4-H'ers to dance in this, and they have the youth separate from the adults, and down in the arena they have it done in white lime, 10-foot squares, so that they doesn't step on the lines or anything like that, and they have pre-arranged songs that they could practice for about a month or so, but they have to do everything the same, everything standard, and they start eliminating out of there. The ones that are left that make no mistakes, do not step on the lines or anything, they give them blue ribbons. And now this is televised. They put this on television. Pennsylvania. They do it every year. They just had it not too long ago down in Harrisburg.
Our time is gone. We thank you for attending. Your input has been very good. Mike Hogan's run the mic. We appreciate that. Would you give a nice hand for Mike Seastrom and Jim Hensley?
Here's a copy. Here's one of those cards. Yeah, you got it. Next session coming up is who are they? Marty Meals will be there'll be a coupon. We're also going to be printing some of this material up. Take back again. Yeah, it's right here. As a matter of fact. Also, on your 15-week prior, I tried that.